All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan, I'm the pastor here. It's good to be with you on another Saturday evening, to be with you in your living room, your home, your free circle, your sober living house. A couple of our leaders here at Free. Good to have you all here. It's Saturday night. We're going to do what we do. If you're new with us, welcome. If you don't know what we're about, we are a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees, people who feel like they've been kicked around by religion, people who feel like they don't belong. They've been told they don't belong with the God stuff, and here we say you do belong. So welcome to Free. We call this place Free because all the things that set us free, grace, compassion, love, forgiveness, these are the things that are so freely given by God, and that's what we do here. The other thing we do here is each and every week, each and every day, we break the silence of addiction. We create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. That's who we are. It's what we're about. So glad y'all are here. I've got some good news to share with everybody, and we got lots of good news tonight. We're in the second week of Advent. We're going to be talking about peace, but before we get to peace, some good news. This Tuesday, 5 days ago was it? I don't know, a few days ago, Tuesday? It was Giving Tuesday. Our goal was to raise $15,000. We had a challenge gift given to us by someone part of this community, and they said, hey, why don't you see if you can match it? So we have raised I just checked a couple of hours ago, we were just over $12,000. So what we did as a team, we decided to keep things open till midnight tonight. Yes, we can clap for that. And here's the deal. People say, oh man, we got so close. We got so close to the goal of $15,000. We did. We are close, I should say. We can still hit that goal. And it was a lofty goal. When we set the goal of 15, we knew it was a big goal. We knew it was going to be hard to reach. We're just over 12,000. If you want to help us meet that goal of 15,000, I encourage you to jump online, freespiritualcommunity.com/give, and you can give there. And y'all, I say it every week, and I'm going to say it again. Your generous giving keeps what we do here, keeps us going in the world. If you didn't catch the live video we did this week with so many in this community, well, we had 5 guest storytellers we did a live. David McElwain, the chair of our board, he ended things and he kind of went through where we are as a board, where we're headed with our vision. And there's some really cool things happening. And we know we need to keep going because of what's happening in the world. So the pandemic is not stopping Free. We can't wait till we can reopen and gather everyone back in here. But we are going places together, and I can't wait for y'all to be a part of this. It's going to be so good. So if you want to give, freespiritualcommunity.com/give. All right. Do we have anything else? I think, Lou, can we bring Lou forward? Lou is going to tell you about our Christmas event, December 18th. By the way, you might have missed it. Can I tell them real quick? Lou kicked us off with our series on Letter to Your Addiction, Letter to My Addiction. Yes. He was the first one. We're doing this all throughout Advent. There's another one tonight. But Lou, so many of you watched this video and shared this video. Shoot, I think it's over 4,000 views now. But Lou was telling me earlier that his phone hasn't shut down. People are just reaching out for help. It shows us how important this work is. Anyway, go watch it. It's on the Facebook page if you haven't seen it. Lou's Letter to His Addiction. Thanks for being here, brother. Give us a good word.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to answer those emails or to answer those text messages for that, and then also along with lines with the free gives. Like we talk about being the wagon, free gives helps us be the wagon. It helps us allow us to give to, the families that are in need. So, all right, here we go. I mentioned it a little last week, but December 18th, we are doing free Christmas gives. It is from 5 to 7 p.m. here at Free in the parking lot. We will be sponsoring the Dole family. I got the list. Here's their list, and they will actually be here. I've contacted them. They're going to be coming down. They're going to be spending the from 5 to 7 with us. They're going to be present here. And so what we're going to have hot chocolate. We're going to have a hot chocolate cart here. And so we're going to also have s'mores, and we will be Danny will be doing music, and we're going to try and get some carolers here. So also, Santa's going to make a visit. Yes. We heard the kids get surprised. Yes, Santa will be here. Yes, he will. And what we want you guys to do is we're going to have a home group outside. We're going to do a volunteer line, and they're going to, just like we did for Pop the Trunk, come in, they're going to get the presents. We're going to decorate the wagon and fill the wagon up for the Doldo family. And while they're here, so it's on Sign Up Genius. The link is posted on the Facebook page, and we will repost it after this and this week. So we'll I know people have already signed up for the gifts, but the list is actually on the Sign Up Genius. You can find it there to see what's left. And the home team will help with presents, parking. And then we're going to also looking for people, if you have heaters, some tall stand-up heaters, and if anybody has a propane fire pit, I believe, so we can do the s'mores. So we'll have all that stuff here. And just with that, so again, December 18th from 5 to 7 p.m. here at Free, we are going to do that. And I believe right now, this time of the year, step in here. This time of the year, we were just talking about it in prayer before. It is vital. This is something
so much. Yeah.
That we need, this community needs. It's hard. Sorry. There's a lot of pain going on right now.
Yep. It's hard. Yeah.
And I truly believe the more that we can share and give the spirit, Christmas spirit, I think is what is needed.
So come hang out in the dang parking lot. Come on. Thank you, Lou. Thanks, brother. Love you, dude. All right, y'all. I want to say one other thing. A big shout out, huge thank you to. I already thanked y'all for giving and being part of that. So awesome to be part of this community. But Matt Davis, he's in the house tonight. He is. Let's clap for Matt. He's a new tech team member because if you're not here, you can't see everything that it takes to run a Facebook Live and to do graphics and to just run so many different things with so many different people. Matt's new on the team. Thank you, Matt, for being here. You're doing awesome. Drew is not with us tonight, but Drew is usually here. Danny runs his team. We're always grateful for Danny. Drew, love you, brother. We're grateful for everything you've done to help us get up on our feet. And I want to say this, if you are interested in joining the tech team, we're always looking for more people because it takes a village to run this stuff. So if you're interested, reach out to me or reach out to Danny Colella, and he will hook you up. We need more people. Okay. Y'all, we are in the second week of Advent. If you're a bit fuzzy, Advent is the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas. We're not actually at Christmas yet. Christmas isn't until a couple more weeks away. The 4 weeks leading up is called Advent. It's a time of anticipation. It's a time of waiting for hope to break through the world, and peace and joy and love, waiting for the coming of Christ, for the new thing to happen right here in the midst of the old thing, new life in the midst of old life. That's what we're recognizing in Advent. I want to invite Saman and Romy to, y'all will need a mic. They're going to light the Advent candles of hope and tonight, peace.
This evening, we light 2 candles, the candle of hope and the candle of peace. This candle reminds us that God came into our world through the form of a vulnerable baby to restore peace, and that through trust in God's grace and breath, we find our own inner peace. We remember that Christ is the Prince of Peace who taught us the way of inviting God in so that we may experience peace within and spread peace to others.
Thank you, Saman and Romy and Selah. Love you, baby. Selah's my daughter. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right, y'all. We are going to engage in celebrations because it's how we start here. Last week, we forgot celebrations until the end. Tonight, we're going to begin with celebrations. It's how we start here. We start with the good stuff. We don't ignore the bad stuff. We don't ignore the pain and the heartache, but we don't start there. We start with the good things. Take 2 minutes and give us the good. Sobriety anniversaries, new things in life, wedding anniversaries, babies being born, jobs being had. Give us the good and get vulnerable in the comments. Let this community in. This community loves to celebrate with you. And we have this wild idea around here that God loves to join in these celebrations too, that God is clapping with us. So drop in your comments. Let's celebrate together. Take 2 minutes and then we'll come back and celebrate some more. 2 minutes, y'all.
Secret is I just smile and say follow me. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Life's too short not to really live. I got a big heart, I can let you in. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. On top of the world. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Ask me what my secret is, I just smile and say, live for today. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the sun came up and I gotta say, see it in a whole new way. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. On top of the world. Yeah. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. On top of the world, yeah. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Ask me what my secret is. On top of the world, I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Ask me what my secret is. On top of the world, I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sitting on top of the world.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Tammy's with me.
Woo.
It's almost like we live together and stuff. We're on the same page. All right, y'all. Thank you for dropping in all your comments. The tech team's going to throw them up on the screen, and we're going to celebrate with you and read some of those together. It's the importance of celebrating together. You want to go first?
Sure. From Lou, congrats to Scott W. on 2 years of sobriety.
Yes, Scott.
I'll do a fake clap with my mic. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You can blow out eardrums too. Thanks for sharing that with us, Lou. Landon, what's up, dude? Landon says 11 months and a few days sober.
Sweet,
Landon, way to go, brother.
Awesome.
Good for you, dude. Glad you're part of this community.
Woo. Hey, Christy. So thankful that my brother is continuing to heal from his hip surgery and is now moving around with just a cane. We will celebrate that.
All
with the-
right. Thanks for sharing that with us, Christy. We've been praying for your brother. Jamie Delgato says the nonprofit I work for, Yes, the nonprofit I work for is funding me to take my state certification in peer coaching. God willing, I will be done in 6 months. Jamie, you are on such a good path. Good things are happening. Thank you for always sharing that good news with us.
It was good to see you last week too, Jamie.
Yeah.
Stopping into free. For family. Yeah. Awesome, Cindy.
We'll
Thanks for
celebrate
sharing
with that with Cindy. Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that. MJ says, blessings for my friends who were married yesterday. Congratulations to your friends,
Very
MJ.
cool.
Thanks for sharing that with this
Especially in
community.
the midst of COVID. I'm not really sure how that works these days, but
I've
that's
done a
really
few
exciting.
COVID weddings. You,
Yeah.
you do it. You social distance, masks.
It still works.
Uh-huh.
From Carrie, glad to have a job and so grateful to work for such amazing people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good for you, Carrie. Thanks for sharing that. And it's a big deal. Yeah,
so good.
we stopped clapping somewhere along the way a couple of shares ago. Shirley Colella says, I'd like to lift Danny up in prayer. She's talking about Danny Colella. I pray he feels love and God's peace of all he's doing, becoming the man he is.
Yeah.
We're going to celebrate that. Thanks for sharing that with us, Shirley.
We like Danny Colella.
I don't know if y'all were able to hear Tammy. She just turned her mic on, so she was a little quiet. She should be a
Sorry,
little
guys.
louder
Whoops. Hey, we like Shirley Colella too, by the way.
now. We do.
Yes.
Yes, we like the whole Kalila gang.
Yes, we do. Hey, Jen, very, very grateful that my brother is healing from his surgery and that my mom is able to be with him while he recovers. God is good. Yeah, thanks, Jen.
Yes, amen. Thank you, Jen, for sharing that. Andrew Bickford,
Hey,
who is
Drew.
not in the house, but is usually in the house doing his thing in the
We
back
miss
for
you, Andrew.
many hours on a Saturday night. He says, want to celebrate Matt stepping up to be part of the tech team. Yes.
Yes.
Big deal, and we appreciate your service. I'm excited. Also, Tawny is celebrating 3 days free of Suboxone. Way to go, Tawny!
Awesome job,
Thanks, Drew, for
Tawny.
sharing that with us.
That's
Love
really
y'all.
big. So good. Hey, Cindy, 14 months sober.
That's big.
We will celebrate that.
14 months, yes.
Yes.
Way to go, Cindy. Rachel says, I have 8 months sober and out of prison. I just received custody back of my children right before Christmas and my birthday.
Sweet.
Praise God. That's the life we're talking about.
Yes.
Way to go, Rachel.
Blue's
Getting
over here
life
and he's going,
back.
Yep.
Yes.
Hey, Missy, Ryan just got 2 years.
Not this Ryan.
No.
Ryan Nuss. Way to go, Ryan Nuss.
Awesome.
Proud of you, dude. Ryan is part of our board of directors. He was here earlier. He's gone now, but way to go, Ryan. Proud of you, dude.
So good.
All right, let's stop there. If y'all have more things you want to celebrate, feel free to drop them in the comments. We're going to celebrate with you all week. So fun to be a part of this. Thank you, Tammy, for joining me. Do you want to take that with you? Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, take it with you. All right, guys. Tava came in for her letter to her addiction. Here's her letter. Take a look.
My name is Tava, and I've been sober since January 11th, 2016. This is a letter to my addiction. Dear addiction, you were sneaky. I put my all into you and promptly, not gradually, lost everything I held dear before I met you. I thought nothing of myself and in turn thought nothing of taking advantage of people I love. And living in desolation, I chose you over my dreams, health, family, and morals I once held so tightly. You truly did your job and isolated me from the sunlight of the Spirit. I wanted and tried to put the light out on this precious gift of life that was given to me by God. Thank you for taking me to the better end where I had no choice but to look up. Thank you for teaching me that this life is not only to survive, but to thrive. Don't worry, I'll never forget you. I just want to thank you. Thank you for propelling me to a better life than I would have ever imagined. I would not have had half the life without you. You see, I had to put in the work, fall back in love with the God of my understanding, and not only seek, but invite spiritual experiences into my daily living. Remembering you excites me to become the woman I am and was meant to be. Honest, forthright, and loving. I get to show up as a supportive wife, a fun-loving mama, a daughter, a granddaughter, a niece, and a friend. What I understand now is that I know who I am. I knew it the minute every illusion about who I tried to be was shattered when you were taken away. I got to then choose which shattered pieces were too sharp to stay and leave them in the past where they belong. This is the thing about breaking, is I get to put myself back together in a beautifully whole way. Today, my purpose is to give what I was so freely given to me: hope, love, peace, and joy. So in part, the life I am living today is because of you, my addiction. From lost and hopeless to ground in a community surrounded by people like me. Often, I will think back to my 5-year-old self, 13-year-old self, or even the self of yesterday, and give her a big hug and tell her it will be okay. Giving ourselves grace is an amazing gift of sobriety. If you are struggling, cornered in the dark with seemingly no way out, I'm here to tell you it is possible and to tell you it can and it will be beautiful. I've only got today, thank goodness. But those todays add up to a meaningful life without you, my addiction. I've survived you and I will not forget you, and I love my life without you. All in all, I am grateful, so darn grateful that you showed up and you were so soul-sucking that I absolutely had to reach out for the hope of all of my tomorrows without you. My name is Tava, and this was a letter to my addiction. There is hope.
Wow. Thank you for that, Tava. You were passing around a Kleenex box here at Free. Talk about some goosebumps going on. Thank you for your meaningful words, the time you put into that, the rawness, the authenticity. Thank you for those words. And we will be throwing that on our social media pages later this week so that others can see that as well. You gave hope. You showed the way of peace. Thank you for that, Tava. You know, if y'all would have told me before I got sober that you could go through hard things and still have peace, I would have just called y'all a liar. I mean, this is impossible. You can't go through hard things in life and at the same time have some inner peace. I mean, the hard things steal that peace, right? And I should also be honest with you. Y'all know this isn't a surprise. But when I was active in my addiction, you know, there was lots of things that stood in the way of me and God, in between me and God's peace. Barriers that had to be removed. The barrier of the drink, booze, but it wasn't just that. There was also the barrier of my anger, Ryan's fear, Ryan's lack of surrender. I think we call that pride when we think we can do it better on our own. We've got our own way of doing it. You know, it was almost 3 years ago. 3 years ago in February that my stepdad walked out. And I haven't seen him since. And some of y'all know this story. It turned my world upside down. It made me question a lot of things that I thought were so solid in the world, that I thought were these stable things. It made me question a lot of things in existence. It was a hard time in my life. And it wasn't just that moment of that night of when he walked out. It was for days and months after that. A hard, traumatic time in my life. And one of the reasons for that is, you know, he was married to my mom for almost 30 years. He was a father figure in my life since I was at the age of 6. We had a good relationship. My kids called him Pawpaw. We went down to Florida often and would visit my mom and stepdad, and they would come to Colorado and visit us, and we talked on the phone. I mean, we did all the things that normal, healthy relationships do. And so when Mom called me that night in February, almost 3 years ago, I said, man, I got to talk to him. I got to put him on the phone. And he got on the phone, and I said, Rob, man, what are you thinking? Help me understand this. I don't get this. I mean, this was not supposed to happen. This was out of left field, and he found another woman. And I said, help me understand this. Do you get the implications of this? And he readily acknowledged that, yeah, I won't be having a relationship with you all. I won't be in your lives. And I hung up the phone, and Tammy said, we were getting ready to go to bed, and she said, you were so calm and gentle with him. And I kept thinking to myself, and I remember that night my knees were shaking, my legs felt like they were going to give out, and I kept thinking to myself the days after, when's the old self going to kick back in? When's the old me going to show up? Because this isn't me. The old me, well, I know how to respond to situations like this. You go into a fit of rage. You let people know how you feel. When things get bad enough, you pick up the drink, which was every day. Oh, I know how to deal. When's the old me going to kick back in? And listen, y'all, it's important to also say, I would absolutely be lying to you if I told you that shame and anger never crept up during these days. And let me tell you all how shame works for me in that situation, because we can talk about this with kids and divorce, but grown-ass men can go through this too. And it made me ask questions. I remember nights, and it was almost always at night. Well, maybe there's something fundamentally wrong with me. If he can leave so easily, maybe I'm not really worthy of love. And anger. I'd be lying to you all if I said anger didn't come up either. I remember nights, waking up in the middle of the night trying to catch my breath. Cold sweats, the same thing that happened to me when my brother died when I was 18 years old. Cold sweats, and I'd be breathing hard. Tammy would have her hand on my back. She'd say, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I had these dreams, another dream of engaging in physical violence towards a certain person. That stuff can creep up. That shame and anger is a real thing, and I had to admit to myself, because still 3 years later, I have no better understanding of this than I did 3 years ago. I don't get it. It was baffling to me. It's still baffling to me. And listen, there may be things that happen in your life that you do not understand, and it doesn't matter how much work you do, how much interior work you do, you don't have answers. You don't understand why it happened or why it's happening. But you know what I didn't do? I didn't pick up a drink. I didn't go into fits of rage. I didn't put a hole in a wall. I didn't engage in the name-calling angry texts or the conversations. You know what I was able to do? I flew out to Florida to be with my mom just a couple of days after that, to be with my mom and sister. I was able to connect with my sponsor. You know what he had me do? He said, "Each night you're there, I want you to do a gratitude list." Well, that's stupid. Who wants to do gratitude? I want to sit in my pain and suffering for a little bit. I don't want to think about gratitude. Why would he have me do that? Because we know that gratitude fundamentally changes the neurological pathways in your brain. It literally changes your brain, transforms your heart. Even when you don't want to do it, that's when we do it. I was able to connect with other guys. I was able to be in groups and communities of people where I could be honest and actually put shame to the side, because sometimes shame would tell me, well, this is too minimal. People aren't going to understand it. They're not going to understand why it's affecting you so much. If it was just a stepdad, they won't understand it, so stay quiet. I didn't have to do that. And Tammy said to me, she said, "Man, it's weird because it's like you got this weird peace that is with you." And if y'all knew me, it was a weird peace. It was a weird peace. It wasn't supposed to be this kind of freaky weird peace. And it was weird because it was a really hard thing. And yet at the same time, I had this kind of deep, abiding peace. Yeah. You know, there's a place in the big book. It starts on page 83. And I want to share this with you. It gives some perspective, just a few lines, just a paragraph. It says, "We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know, K-N-O-W, peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. We will intuitively know how to handle the situations that used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves." And y'all, it is always a sacred thing to realize that God is doing the stuff for you that you could never, ever, ever do for yourself, no matter how hard you tried. And listen, it wasn't just that God showed up. And how often do we say that, right? How often have you said or heard others say, "Well, yeah, this amazing thing happened in my life, and it's just like God showed up." Well, God didn't just show up. I mean, what kind of theology is that? So if that amazing thing isn't happening in your life, is God just somewhere up here, like distant, falling asleep on a job? If things really suck in your life, is it because God isn't just showing up? I mean, what does that say about suffering in our world if God just shows up, if God just kind of jumps in and out of humanity, in and out of history? It wasn't that God was just showing up, it's that God's been there the whole time, and sometimes we are just becoming aware of that presence in our life. It's the God that I've come to know through Scripture, through experience, through tradition, through reason, and it says that God is everywhere, breathing life in us, through us, and all around us all the time, and sometimes we're actually aware of it. So here's what I'd like to invite you to do. Take one hand and place it on your chest. Yeah, if you're watching at home, you can do this too. If you're in your living room, place one hand on your chest, place the other hand on your belly, and let's just breathe for a moment, shall we? Find some quiet. Take some deep breaths. Central to the Christian tradition for thousands of years have been disciplines of meditation, breathing, silence, reflection. Our ancestors, keep breathing, keep your hand on your belly and a hand on your chest. Our ancestors believed that there was something divine about our breath. So take a moment and invite the God who created the universe into your breathing. Sometimes we say that God feels distant, or we cry out, God, where are you? And I think when we do that, God responds back like, seriously? I gave you breathing. How much closer can I get? My brothers and sisters, is God as close to you as breathing? You see, in the Old Testament, the ancient Hebrew people, they believed that God was actually breathing life in everything, all around them, all the time. They believed that spirit was constantly on the move, and we've talked about what this word is. The word they used for God's spirit, for God's movement in the world, is this word ruah. We talked about this word here before. Say that word with me, ruah. It's that Hebrew word, so it kind of comes in the back of the throat, ruah. Isn't it a fun one to say? Ruah. Now, they believed that everything was God-breathed. Eating, hanging out with people, going to work, dying, being here in this moment, that everything was God-breathed, and God's breath was holding all things together, and they had moments where they became aware of these ruah moments. And get this, they understood ruah to be as wide as the universe and powerful enough to even sustain the stars, but they also believed that it was personal and as intimate as the breath you just took, and the breath you just took again, and the breath you're about to take after that. They had this wild belief that God was everywhere. And in fact, when you read through some of their texts, some of these scriptures, when you read through the Psalms, right in the middle of the Bible, in the Old Testament, if you open up to the middle, you see psalm after psalm of God being everywhere. In fact, there's a psalm, Psalm 139, where it says, man, no matter where I go, no matter what I'm going through, it's like if I go up there, if I go down here, if I go to the farthest ends of the earth, you are there because your spirit is everywhere. Where can I go to escape it? And throughout the scriptures, this idea of being surrounded by God's Spirit had this incredible way of bringing a kind of peace to people, a kind of peace that they couldn't describe. They said it went beyond human understanding. And you know what's interesting? The scriptures talk a lot about peace. Jesus talked a lot about peace. There's this guy named the Apostle Paul. He talked a lot about peace. And I know we've talked about Paul here before. He would go in the first century and start a movement. And then he would leave and start another movement and another church and another church. And the way he stayed in contact with them was through writing letters to them. There's 13 letters in the New Testament attributed to Paul. Now, most scholars believe that Paul only actually wrote 7 of those. And it's interesting because all 7 of those letters, they all start the same way. Paul introduces himself, he says who he's with, and then he greets people, and then he says, grace and peace to you, my brothers and sisters. And you know why that's interesting? Because peace is this Greek word, irene, and it comes from the Hebrew word shalom. Y'all know the word shalom? You've heard this word? Yes, shalom. It has some depth to it. It is way more than the absence of conflict or the absence of war. It can be translated as wholeness, healing, health, harmony, integration. It speaks to our interconnectedness. And get this, every time it is used, almost every time, there's a couple of times it's not, almost every time it is used in its present form. In other words, peace isn't something that happened in the past and it's to be grasped after. Peace isn't something that's in the future and it's to be longed for, but peace can be experienced right here, right now in the present. And I'll close with this. He wrote this letter to this people called the Philippians. They lived in this place called Philippi. And he's writing this, we'll read it. He's writing this from behind the walls of a prison, unjustly accused. And here's what he says, one verse. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. He wrote this to these people while in a prison. It's almost like Paul is saying, even in the midst of the hard stuff, even when things are really hard and you don't have all the answers, God is working to restore wholeness and healing and health and harmony and integration. Are you open to it? Isn't that the question we're being asked? Are you open to it? Isn't that the question Advent is asking us? Are you open to it? Are you open for what's about to come, what is happening right now? And the truth is, y'all, some of you have been through some hard things recently. Some of you are going through some hard things right now. When we gathered together before this service, we prayed together and there was tears in this room. There's some hard things happening right now. There's some trauma happening right now. In fact, we're dealing with a collective kind of trauma right now with this COVID coronavirus pandemic. Some of you have experienced job loss. Some of you have experienced sickness or even death of a loved one. The holidays are all busted up, aren't they? My mom was supposed to be in town tonight. She was supposed to fly in yesterday, 2 days ago. Canceled because of COVID. Our little daughter, Selah, who's 10 years old, she sat on her bed and she said, COVID's ruined our life. And yeah, it's a bit dramatic, isn't it? Sometimes she has a flair for the dramatic. It's extreme. But when you hear your 10-year-old daughter express what's on her heart, yeah, it'll get you. There's a teacher that we know. She just posted on social media this week. She said, this week has been the hardest week of my life. And it listed how COVID had very profound and real effects in her life. And we know that in this community, a community for addicts and loved ones of addicts and spiritual refugees, we know that addiction is way up. We know that relapse is way up. We know that depression is way up, and isolation and desperation. And maybe God just feels so distant for you. Do you know how the Christmas story begins? Or shall we call it the Advent story? It begins, at least in this gospel, Matthew's gospel, as an angel of God comes to Joseph. You know Joseph, right? Mary gives birth to Jesus, that Joseph. An angel comes to Joseph and says, my boy, don't be afraid. Dude, you're here. Am I not supposed to be afraid? Don't be afraid. He says there's this new thing happening. Mary's going to have a baby. It's going to be a baby boy. And I know you don't know how it happened. We'll get there. But what you need to know is this is bigger than you. It's a God thing. It's way bigger than you. And when this baby is born, they're going to call him Emmanuel. Why is that significant? Because Emmanuel translates as God with us. And by the way, we'll jump ahead just for 12 seconds, I promise. How does God come into the world? Not as a powerful king, not as a powerful ruler, but God comes into the world as a vulnerable baby boy. Yeah. Do you believe peace is possible? Do you believe that God is in the business of restoring health, wholeness, healing, harmony, integration? Do you believe that God is with you and peace is possible even in the midst of really hard things? So before we have our guest storyteller come forward, and I can't wait for y'all to meet Jay, I'll say more about him in just a moment, but I want you to just take 2 minutes and reflect on those 3 questions. They're going to be on the screen for you. Take 2 minutes. What is peace? Is peace possible? Do you know that God is with you even in the midst of the hard things, that God was born into the world to go through the mess with us, to go through the hard with you? Take 2 minutes and reflect, and if you want, drop some comments in. Let the community know where your heart is, where your mind is with peace. All right, y'all. I hope that was a meaningful time of reflection for you. Tammy said this was a shameless plug. Wagon Coffee. Wagon Coffee actually has a Shalom blend. It's a Brazilian bean. If you want some Brazilian coffee, is that?
Yeah. And it was made for the deli bagel. Give them a
Yeah, it was made for the Deli Bagel. Jared, if you're listening, the Deli Bagel here in Denver, which was just on the Food Network. Bagel Deli.
Sorry, totally screwed that up.
Sometimes we get things backwards around here. Anyway, Shalom. If you want some Shalom, let Tammy know. Go to Wagon Coffee, wagoncoffeeroasters.com. Listen, guys, I really am excited for you to meet Jay Brandenburg. Now he's got some letters behind his name, MA and LPC. He can tell us what that means. But why I want you to meet Jay, why we're having a conversation tonight, and I've been telling everyone, I think this is going to be absolutely fascinating. He's a trauma-informed narrative therapist. He understands his role in the world to help people see the truth of who they really are. And as we were talking this week, he said, what's one thing you really want your community to walk away with if I come and share? And I said, dude, as we talked, I said, man, I would love for our community to know that. And he talked about trauma and how trauma affects people, especially in the world of addiction and recovery, how trauma affects people. I said, I want my people to have a deeper understanding of how trauma affects us and what it is. So I want you all to help me welcome Jay Brandenburg now to the table. Welcome, Jay. Welcome, Jay. Glad you're here, dude.
Thank you. It's good to be here, man. It's an honor.
So it's all the honor's all mine, and I mean that. And we're gonna have this conversation. I don't know exactly where it's gonna go. We're gonna keep it open. I mean, we know the path, but there might be some what do we call them? Bunny trails, rabbit trails?
Yeah, probably.
There might be some of that. We need some of that. But you know, as we were talking the other day, you had this really interesting way that you talked about addiction. So I want you to talk about that, but then this is what I found most interesting. Jay told me, he said, we can, and it just rattled off his mouth, off his tongue, and I said, dude, slow down, I gotta like write this. This is worthy of a tweet. He said, we cannot talk about addiction if we don't first talk about shame, and we cannot fully understand shame if we don't understand trauma. And it's a big hashtag in this community is we don't do shame. So unpack that for us a little bit, addiction and then trauma and how that bleeds into addiction and shame.
Yeah, good question. I would say the word addiction is actually rooted in a word that means to attach. It's about attachment. And what's so interesting in the field when we talk about trauma and the work I do with people in my office is often to heal attachment wounds. So many of us have brokenness in relationships that cause us to have a hard time in relationship. And so we attach our hearts to things other than things that are healthy. So like things like alcohol or food or video games, or I mean, there's so many things that we can attach our hearts to. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, do you know Richard Rohr?
Yeah. I don't know him personally, but
I don't know him personally either. I talk about him like I do, but
yeah, I feel like I would, man. Yeah.
Jay knows an incredible amount of people. Like personally knows a lot of people, so I'm kind of surprised you don't know him. But what Richard Rohr said, I think it was Richard Rohr who said this, that addiction is anytime we take something out there and we feel what's wrong within here. We try to fill the brokenness in here with something out there, and that's addiction. And it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. And I'd say addiction, like people, you know, often kind of categorize people in mental health, in the church, in society by behavior. So if you have an addiction to alcohol, you're an alcoholic. Like that becomes your title, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're a survivor of sexual abuse, you've been a sexual abuse survivor. Like we label and we name things that happen, but I would say every one of us is an addict.
Yeah.
And I would say that that addiction, we were created for it.
Say more about that.
Yeah. We were created to be addicted to God.
Yeah.
Attached to God, right? In Acts it says, in him we live and move and have our very being.
Yeah.
Right? The first not good in Scripture, God creates, and the first thing he says, it's not good for what? Man to be alone.
Yeah.
And so we were created in this context of community.
Yeah.
Which is why I love being here tonight, because it's like you've just nailed that. You guys are doing such a great job with that piece.
Yeah, community's happening here.
Yeah.
So good. So, you know, when we started Free, Tammy and I decided together that we did 4 sessions in our backyard, and it just kind of blew up on us. And we called it Recovery for Everyone, because it was exactly that thinking that we're all in need of recovery. You're not just recovered, we're in need of recovery. But I love that. I've never heard that we all battle addiction, and what are we created for?
Yeah, I think, you know,
awesome.
obviously alcohol and drugs and those things have maybe more immediate and in the moment devastating consequences. But the man that's addicted to his title or to money, right? What does that do to a family?
Yeah.
Right?
And that's a very real thing, right?
Or the woman addicted to, you know, whatever. I mean, we all have attachments, and we attach our hearts to the wrong thing.
Yeah, and when it comes to drugs and alcohol, that's just a lot easier to see.
Yeah.
And oftentimes there's this more immediate destruction that comes with it.
Yeah.
Destruction of relationships and getting a DUI or whatever those consequences are. But it's just easier to see when you talk about the greed and the money and the titles.
Yeah.
We can do a pretty good job at covering that up for a while.
Yeah. Well, and I have this theory I throw around. I really believe that we're in a trauma-based culture.
Yeah.
That we live in a country that was literally founded upon the principles of trauma. So if you think about how our nation was formed, right, where these people come from, they came from persecution, and they set up this new world. And what's the thing we talk about in America? Freedom.
Yeah.
And what's the freedom about? It's, I will not be hurt ever again. So
Yeah.
what I will do is I will become autonomous.
Yeah. Yes.
And God is not autonomous.
Uh,
He's triune. It's Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in this beautiful dance where they've never known loneliness.
yeah.
And we
We're
were
getting some amens in this community,
Yeah.
Jay. We don't get that a lot.
we
around
were
here.
we were created to be in that love.
Yeah.
So we talk about faith, hope, and love, and
Yeah.
the greatest of these is love.
Yep.
What's faith? It's trust. And what trauma destroys is trust.
Yeah.
I think we think about trauma often as these big things. And in our field we have large T trauma and small T trauma.
Explain that to us.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So large T trauma is a global pandemic, right? This global thing that happens that affects everybody, or it could be a plane wreck, or those are those big things that when you think about trauma, you go, oh yeah, that's trauma. Small T trauma, what we found out in the field is that small T trauma has just as much of an impact, if not more. And what it is it's things like a hurtful word on a playground.
Yeah.
You're a little boy, and maybe you go to school and somebody says that word, and 30 years later, you're still working from that foundation,
Yeah.
right?
So we live in that story. So I love how you described yourself to me, a trauma-informed narrative therapist. So we have these stories that we can
Yeah.
live by. I'm.
Let me say this. It was funny because you asked me what would I call myself, and that was like a really strange question for me. I've never thought about that. Like, I'm Jay. I think what I call myself is a storyteller
Yeah.
and a story hearer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's within that context that a lot of healing can happen. When you create space for somebody to tell their story, it's such a sacred space.
Yeah.
I mean, tears, right? The woman that read her,
Yeah.
right? And also, when you enter your own story and you begin to understand the things that impact your heart and your identity, that's the work of trauma healing.
Yeah. So talk with us about that, man. And when we were sitting this week talking with one another, I couldn't take notes quick enough. But it was, so you say we cannot talk about addiction if we don't first talk about shame.
Yeah.
And we can't fully understand shame if we don't understand trauma.
Yeah. So let me kind of tease that out a
Yeah.
bit. Trauma shatters our self-image. So if we're created in the image of God, and we're created, God says you are good,
Yeah.
you're holy, you're good, right? When something happens like a car wreck or sexual abuse, man, that's a really big one.
Yep.
What does that do to a person's view of who they are? It damages and destroys and distorts. And like my friend Jonathan says, it shatters our hearts into a million pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so in that space, the enemy shows up and he speaks into those wounds lies about who we are.
Yeah.
And we believe him because, gosh, why would my stepfather walk out of my house, of my family, and leave us?
Yeah.
Right? In that wound, what does the enemy tell you?
Yeah. Lies that we have to combat.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not good enough.
Yeah, that's trauma.
Yeah.
Right? So let me get back to the faith, hope, and love piece.
Yep.
Faith is understood as trust. It's the ability to look back and go, oh, that thing held my weight. That thing carried me. That thing was trustworthy, which leads to hope. And my definition of hope is the ability to imagine, the ability to dream, the ability to go, hey, this pandemic's going on right now, but you know what? Like, lots of things have happened in history, and God's carried his people, and I have hope, like, it's going to be okay,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's a sustaining hope. It's not a
Yeah.
wake up Christmas morning joy kind of hope. It's like that kind of sustaining.
Yeah.
We'll make it through this.
Yeah.
We've got people.
You got it, right. And so with that, faith leads to hope, which leads to love. And love is only experienced in the present.
Wow.
Love happens in what? Relationship,
Yeah.
in the present moment.
Yeah.
But if I'm in my trauma, man, it creates fear.
Yeah.
And fear pushes us into places that don't exist.
Yeah, it pushes me into protection mode. If I'm in fear, well, you're not going to hurt me anymore. You're not going to hurt me again.
Yep.
So we live like
Yep.
this.
And we learn to wear masks.
Yeah.
My good buddy Paul is just a dear man, a guy that I think has done so much work. And he says this, he defines healing as it's when the truth of our being matches the way of our being.
Yeah.
And when I heard it, my heart kind of went, ugh. Because the first thought I had is like, if he knew what I was thinking about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that, or what I did, you know, when I yelled at my kids, and he says this to me, he says, let me tell you what the truth of who you are is. You are made in the image of Jesus. If you want to know who you are, look at Jesus. That's who you are.
Yeah.
Trauma has taught you to believe something other.
Yeah.
And so in my trauma, when I believe something other,
that's good.
what happens? What happens to my behavior? And so much of the church, counseling, we focus on behavior.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If I can just stop this behavior, then I'll be good. No. It starts with the fundamental truth.
Yeah. And I know so many people had that church experiences. We were raised in that stuff.
I was raised in the church that I'm sinful, icky, gross,
Yeah.
and God hates sin, and he sent his son and murdered his son so that he didn't have to murder me.
Yeah.
And by golly, I better be thankful, and I better do it right. And God didn't murder his son.
Yeah, and as you're talking about that, just think of the theological trauma. I don't know if anyone's ever explored theological trauma. That's theological trauma, that God would kill his son,
Yeah.
but thankfully you're still here and God didn't kill you. Right. That's I mean, how did we buy into that?
And so
That's a weird thing.
how do you live in faith, hope, and love if you're living in fear?
Yeah.
Another thing about trauma that I think is really important is trauma doesn't just impact the way that I believe or think about myself. It literally changes my brain chemistry.
Say more about that.
It
Help us understand that.
rewires my system. So, man, there's so much I could say about that. There are chemical reactions that happen in trauma that are meant to keep us safe. And when you experience a trauma, either extended period of trauma or abuse or things like that, it can get our bodies so out of whack that every interaction is engaged with in a fight, flight, freeze response. So you can be in a room like this, happy, healthy, things are good, and somebody could walk by with the same cologne that your abuser wore, and you will be transported back to a place of stuckness.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah, my therapist says that trauma creates stuck in times. So where we get traumatized, we get stuck emotionally, physically, and spiritually in that place. So you can grow up and you can be, a man in a lot of situations, but that phone call from mom and you can feel like you're that helpless little boy in 1 minute.
How true is that?
Right?
Yeah.
And that's why trauma doesn't heal through knowledge. So as much as we're talking about it tonight, it helps to kind of get the ball rolling. Trauma heals experientially.
Which is why the storytelling piece is so important. Creating space for that, which is what we try to do here. Create space for stories to be shared in the most real way, not in a secretive way. Which is why that's so healing for people, right? When we do it, and for the hearers.
And so scary and dangerous.
Yeah.
And I just want to honor, the woman that
Tava.
Tava. Like that took so much courage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But in that space, there's healing.
Yeah, because what I've found it to do over the years is, man, if you share your story, that's giving me the permission to go deeper into my story.
Yeah.
When you cry, because we're taught, well, don't cry, hold it all together, be a man.
Yeah.
When you cry, it gives me the permission to cry with you. Like if you think of professional mourners, they would go cry with people because it was a way to give people permission to cry, to mourn.
What do we do in our culture with the funeral, right? It's got the funeral, burial, the visitation, and and we're done.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Whew.
Yeah.
So, and Jay, I think it's so interesting because I've said it in this community before, the way I understand my role as a pastor is to always remind people who they are. So my job is to constantly remind y'all who y'all are, who I am. If we can do that, if I can do that at the end of the day, I consider my job a great success. And when I was asking you, how do you understand your role? You said and I wrote it down when you said it, you said to help people see the truth of who they really are.
Yeah. Man, in my own trauma growing up, my own abuse story, people could say to me, "You're a really good boy.
Yeah.
You're a really good kid." And you know what I hear? "Yeah, but you don't really know me." Right? So what I found for me, what's been so healing, is not just hearing that truth, but experientially in a community of men that have loved me through some really hard things, where there's no secrets.
Yeah.
With a therapist that had the courage for 4 years to walk with me and not get tired of my hiding and pretending, and I'd get close to the pain, and what would I do? I'd find some reason why I didn't need to go back next week, and she kept pursuing me and inviting me into the deep, dark secret. Right?
Yeah. And when we can go in there, it's really scary to go in there.
It's so scary.
But Brene Brown talks about it as a practice, and when we do it once, it gives us the courage to do it again. And when you do it again, then you can do it again. And after long, it's like, oh yeah, I know what this is like. It's never fun to go into the darkness, but I know, I've been here before. I know there's light somewhere. We could do this. Oh, so interesting.
So sobriety, I think, is a really important part of healing trauma.
Yeah.
Because you cannot heal what you don't feel.
Someone put that in the comments. You can't heal what you don't feel. Come on.
You can't heal what you don't feel. The problem is we start to feel it.
Yeah.
And what do? We find a way, a prescriptive way to numb it.
Yeah.
And often, what I found in my own work is that could be religion.
Oh, totally.
Right? Tell me what to do, I'll do it. I said that to my therapist so many times. Tell me what to do. Just tell me.
Give me the answers.
I'm like, how long is this going to take?
Yeah. And for people in recovery, for alcoholics, I'll speak from my own experience. Man, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Tell me what to do, and I'll freaking do it.
Yeah.
I'll do it better and harder than anyone else will. But it
Which is
doesn't
part
get
of the
you nowhere.
problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a survival skill,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I remember I said to her, how long is it going to take? And here's what I learned. We are too fearfully and wonderfully made for quick fixes.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's the healing work of God is so specific. Like every single wound that we carry, he bore that. Why? In a way, I think it was to show us that he had credibility.
Yeah.
He had the street cred to deal with a little boy who was abused at 5.
Yeah.
Like I could trust that man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
We're too intricately, wonderfully, fearfully made for quick fixes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Man, if you haven't read Peter Rollins, I'll say this. If you haven't read Peter Rollins, pick up his book, Insurrection. But he does a video where he talks about church as a crack house. And we go to church to get our fix. And he's a Christian. And he could do this. It's like you or I said. And we could do this.
Yeah.
He talks about it as we go there to get our fix, but then we leave, and there's never healing that takes place. We just go there to get throw our hands in the air, sing, and it's a fix, man. But then we need it again, and it becomes that addiction. Jay, so good, man. I know, guys, we're little. It's 8:03, and I told Jay, I said, hey, I'll be looking down at comments if y'all have questions. Sorry, I got so enthralled in this conversation, I forgot to get questions from y'all. But if you have questions, put them in the comments. Jay, can you interact with people on the thread if people have questions for you?
Yeah, show me how, and I can.
Okay,
yeah,
I'll show you how.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
And listen, guys, he didn't ask me to say this. I'm just saying this on my own. Someone, when they heard Jay was going to be the guest storyteller tonight, this person called me and she said, man, he changed my life, like in therapy. Jay changed my life. If you're looking for someone to work with around trauma and other issues that involve trauma, addiction, whatever it is, how can people contact you?
Yeah, jbncounseling.com.
jbncounseling.com.
Yeah, so is my initials, or j at jbncounseling.com is my email. And I have a lot of resources and folks that I can refer to as well that I really trust that we can get you the help you need.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for being here.
I
hope we can do this again.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, cool, man. I'm
Thanks
glad
for
you're
having me.
here. Thank you, Jay.
All right.
Feel free to stick around and get another cup of coffee.
All right, man.
All right, brother.
Cool.
Good to see you.
Thanks.
Yeah, we can clap for that. Yeah, J part 2. We're gonna, you know what? We'll do it soon because there's I wish y'all could have been part of the conversation we were having, just in an informal way in the living room. It was just fascinating. So we'll do a J part 2 if he's up for that. All right, guys. I do want to say just the final word about the wagon that we have here. The wagon reminds us, it's a central image in this community, that we do not do shame. We don't do shame. What's that? Yeah, can we do giving first? Okay. Giving first. That's what I have in my notes, and we're going to do heartaches. I'm going to do me. Y'all, the wagon, it reminds us who we are, what we're about here. We don't do this life together. When we fall off, if you fall off, we pick one another up. You said we don't do this life together. I'm sorry, y'all. I got too excited. We do this life together. I'm just going to stop there. And I just want to remind you, we have a donation box on the wagon in this community. Donation boxes scattered throughout this community, but we can't have a bunch of y'all here in this community. So really, your giving helps sustain this community, helps further the mission to create space for healing, for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection, to break the silence of addiction. If you've been impacted by this community in any way, shape, or form, even from the other side of the country or the world, I encourage you to give. And we realize for many of you, you do that as a spiritual practice. It's a calling in your life, and we're grateful for that. It means a great deal to us here. There's no donation too small. Any donations that come in prior to midnight tonight will go towards our Giving Tuesday goal of $15,000. We're almost there. We're at somewhere around $12,500. We're almost there. You can help us get there. There's 3 ways to give in this community. You can, we'll throw it on the screen for you. You can download the app. The app is free to download. Just search Free Spiritual Community, and you can give directly on the app. It's safe, simple, and secure. Or you can go to the website, freespiritualcommunity.com/give, and you can give right there. Safe, simple, secure, or text the number on your screen, Be the Wagon, and it'll walk you through some instructions. Your generous giving helps grow the mission here at Free, and we are grateful for that. All right. That's sometimes a mouthful. We're going to close with heartaches, because here in this community we do believe in carrying burdens together. It's the work we do together. We believe that God always hears the cries of the people. So I know there's lots of burdens in this community, and with you all watching, we have a prayer team here that carries you throughout the week, that checks in on you. We do this work together. So take 2 minutes and drop in your heartaches in the comments, and we will be lifting you up throughout the week. People in this community will be lifting you up and doing encouraging words and text and emails, and this is led by Jason, who's the team lead of our prayer team. So take 2 minutes and get vulnerable. Let people in. Take 2.
can I pray for you?
From the mouth of babes. He's going to be praying for y'all. All right, y'all. Welcome back. Got our boy Breck with us this evening.
Are we looking at this?
Shall we? Yeah, we're in this camera. Shall we throw a couple on the screen? Sorry, we were talking in here and I didn't even get to read your all's comments yet, but I will tonight when I go home, I promise you. Let's throw a couple on the screen though. You want to go first?
I'll take Shannon's.
And what's her last name?
Martinez.
Martinez.
So Shan says, Lou's 17-year-old cousin Bella has been missing for 35 days now. Praying for a word or safe return. Praying for peace and strength for her parents as well.
Yeah, we were actually praying for her before the service started. We gathered up and prayed. So, thank you for mentioning that, Shannon.
Yep, thanks, Shan.
Drew, my boy Drew, who's joining us on YouTube, right? He's not on the Facebook. He's on the YouTube.
He's on it.
He says prayers for those out there that are going through withdrawal, whatever that withdrawal is. Love you, Jay, whether you like it or not.
You already love Jay.
You already love, dude, whether you like it or not.
Aw,
Yeah,
thanks,
thanks for
Andrew.
lifting that up. The withdrawals can be powerful.
All right, I can take this because we have a new big screen so I can read it.
There you go.
Yes. Hey, Jamie, not wanting to lose his life, but out of desperation, frustration, isolation, and lack of socializing, my son, 13-year-old Jay, reached out. Sorry, that got me for a second. Reached last end wits and
His last end wits.
and decided to take an OD on pills. So thankful he's okay, but I'm just so heartbroken that this is what our youth are at. Also, our friend Robbie Lee is in COVID lockdown in prison and really can use some encouraging letters. Please lift up those still suffering, addicted, and their children. Thanks, Jay. You got me a little woof for a second.
Can you just leave that up for a moment, Danny? It's what's so powerful about this community is Jamie knows that she can put that on the screen and not experience shame and not be told things that are going to harm, but she's going to get love and healing, I believe, from this community. And Jamie, thank you for sharing that with us and trusting us with that. And prayers for you, Jay.
Yep.
And Jamie, as a mother, your heart, I can hear your heart breaking through Tammy reading that. And prayers for you.
Yeah. Love you, Jay. I know, I think you got everyone choked up here a minute.
Yeah, well.
Okay. Renee, that people know I walk with God and like to poke at me in turn. It really hurts my feelings.
Sorry, Renee. Thanks for sharing that with us. Prayers for you.
You can make it?
Yeah, good.
From Pam, that this isolation is so hard on teens. We don't realize it, and I am so glad he is okay. Yeah. Thank you, Pam.
Yeah.
Standing alongside.
Rachel says, my mother is 63 and is still struggling with a heroin addiction. I pray that God's Spirit protects her physically and spiritually. Rachel, prayers for your mom and her battle with this disease of addiction that is cunning, baffling, and powerful and loves to bring us back. Prayers for your mom.
Kelly Epps, my cousin's baby is getting a bone marrow transplant this week. Prayers for baby Austin, his parents and family, that it works. Prayers for baby Austin. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you for that, Kelly. Thanks for sharing. Prayers for Austin. Barbara says, Jamie, I love you. Thank you for taking Jay in and helping him through the night. All right. There's some love and
Thanks,
support.
Barbara. Yep.
Do we have a couple more, Danny?
That's
Or are
it.
we going to stop there? Y'all, if you have them, I know it's a heavy time for a lot of people in this community. If you have them, keep putting them in the comments. We will, I promise you, someone's going to reach out to you. You're going to get put on a prayer list. And there's no shame in that because we don't do shame here. We lift you up. We encourage. And God joins with us in this work because God always hears the cries of the people. Y'all, I wanted to go out with the St. Francis prayer, and I forgot to give it to Danny and Matt in the back to put it on the screen, so we won't go out with the St. Francis prayer. We're going to go out with the Serenity prayer, but later tonight, Google the St. Francis prayer. It's so hard to memorize. Ashley, if you're watching, Ashley memorized it this week. My 10-year-old daughter, Selah, memorized it 2 years ago. She's kicking her butts in memorizing prayers, and she kicks my butt in it every night. But here's the Serenity prayer. Let's go out with the Serenity prayer. It goes like this. It's on the screen for you. And just open your hands. It's a sign of openness to what God is doing in our midst, the God who gives us peace. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. My brothers and sisters, before we leave, let me leave you with this word. This week, may you experience the God of grace and peace. God is always, always with you, going through the mess with you, because God came to be with us. And God takes that stuff seriously. And we're here with you. We do this work together. Love y'all. We're going to see you next week and throughout the week. Grace and peace.